Good afternoon. It's 4 o'clock. Welcome to the Community Safety Committee meeting of Wednesday, October the 12th. First up is minutes from the meeting held on September 21st. Were there any errors or omissions?
Move adoption.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It is carried. Thank you. Next committee meeting date has been set for November 15th at 4 p.m. in council chambers. Were there any additions to the agenda? All right, we'll move to item number 1, Animal Protection Services Monthly Activity Report, August 2022. And we have Mr. Brar here, who will be able to answer questions for us. Councillor Liu.
Thank you for the report. Just looking at the number of dog licenses, so we only have about 500 or 600 more dog licenses than typical at this time, according to the budget. Is that correct?
Yes, through the chair to Councillor Liu. Currently, we have approximately about 424 dog licenses that remain in arrears, and we are closing out on these accounts as we have finished our canvassing. Any sort of follow-up will be happening in the next month as we go into renewal for 2023.
Okay, thank you. For the dog licenses, our budget was 232. So that relates to 9,000 animals, and so 274 relates to 10,000 animals. Like, is there more dangerous dogs or something, or?
No, currently for the month of September, we did have an enrollment of 85 new dogs, as well as 85 renewals. So monthly, we are getting on average approximately about 80 new dogs, as well as there are the closures of some accounts when it comes down to them moving out of the town or if they are deceased.
So 80 new dogs, so about 1,000 new dogs a year? Is that
Currently, yes.
kind of where we're going? Okay, and so is that a year-over-year trend, or?
In previous years, there has been an occurrence of approximately 80 to 100 new dogs per month, depending on the area or the residency and the awareness of the dog licensing program. With SPCA taking over the contract in the last year, we have had some more enforcement and visibility in some of our local parks, which brings awareness to the dog licensing program as we are continuously bringing in more education through social media.
Okay, thank you. Because I think, we want to make sure we still have enough dog parks, off-leash parks, facilities for the dogs. And so if we're growing at sort of a huge rate, then maybe we need to start relooking at those numbers. But if some of those are just sort of a compliance issue, then I imagine we're not surprised by the numbers and then needing to change any underlying infrastructure for them.
Yes, during the canvassing, we are able to do a closure of accounts as there is some of our policies that require them to, or residents to update our status on the dog accounts if they've moved out of town or if the dog is deceased. So with the canvassing, it helps us to connect with those residents and close some of those accounts that need to have that closure. So there is that equal balance of closure and new applications.
Okay, thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Councillor McNulty.
Yeah, just 2 matters. Good report. Just a quick question on dogs off leash part. Do we have a referral to look at the dogs off leash park at McLean Park in Hamilton? I know there is one, I guess we'll call it south of that, but a number of residents have wanted to see some dog off leash in the area around McLean Park. Did we have a referral on that? And if not, can I make one looking into it, the propriety of it?
Through the chair to Councillor McNulty, there will be some sort of recognition that the new parks will have some sort of reevaluation. I think with the new Bark Park that has opened, this has brought a lot of interest into dog off-leash areas, as well as the Tate Waterfront Park. A lot of these areas that are around the waterfront are very appealing to the residents of Richmond. And I think that the growing population in Hamilton area should be in consideration, and working together with parks and animal protection services, this will be a part of our agenda in the future.
So it's on the books?
Yes.
Okay, I'll expect a report soon on it as an update if I would like to request that. The other thing I had is the dog off-leash park in the West Dikes. Have our SPCA officers had any interaction with the gray-brown dogs that are walking up and down the West Dike called coyotes? And
They're in my backyard.
They're moving into Councillor McPhail's backyard. They're in the Seafair area. They're actually moving quite west, and I'm surprised that they are, because the rabbits are still out on the West Dike, and the heron eggs are still on the West Dike. So I guess my question is there any interaction? Because I was told by chat that there was one deceased coyote somewhere around Fairfax Crescent or Fairdale Crescent, somewhere in there. So I'm just kind of curious and monitoring, because the public, in some cases, are concerned about safety, to be quite frank with you. So has anybody got any information or any complaints or any other members of the committee or whatever about the West Dike? It could be anywhere, sorry, I just picked the West Dike because that's where I came from.
Through the chair, the Animal Protection Services deal with domestic dogs, but we can check in with
Could we?
our partners in parks.
I mean, we want to make sure they're healthy and still doing it, because they're doing us a service out there. But if they're, I'm more concerned about them getting poisoned or whatever. I don't know that why this particular one, according to what I had, was deceased or whether it was sick or whatever. So
Well, I did have a coyote come into my yard 3 days in a row a couple of weeks ago, and I did, on the City of Richmond's website, it does say to call the BC Conservation Society, which I did several times. And they said that they will not come out unless the animal is being very aggressive, or if you're phoning to report people feeding the animals, then they will come out. So I know there's been many sightings. I know the school has been notified in my neighborhood, and I know that there have been coyote sightings in quite a few neighborhoods in Richmond.
yeah, I just want to make sure that we're safe on both ends. As I say, we planted the coyotes out there over the years. And so I want to make sure they're safe, but also the public is safe. So if we could just go to keep a pulse on it, would be good enough. Thank you.
Councillor Wolf.
Thank you. To the chair, actually, to the clerk first, the door was locked. I couldn't get in here before 4 o'clock, and I know there's RCMP standing out there that might want to be coming in, so the door there was locked. Second item, just to clarify from Councilor McNulty's point there about Hamilton. Yeah, that's definitely one of the big issues here out there is the need for that dog park in McLean area. Somebody raised that and did press to know that something is coming. And the other park is not to the south, but it's to the east. It's called Hamilton Highway Park, and it's just over Highway 91 change there. And it does have a dog component to that park, but it doesn't satisfy the need for sure. And then just going to the report, I was interested to ask staff that on our page CS 9 and 10, it mentioned some things that I'm not sure if they're a record or not for the city's total, but we had 237 calls for service related to animal control and 304 violation notifications or issuance. Could you comment on, like, in front of us it looks the highest on the bar graph, but are those the highest of all times?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, for the SPCA, they had answered 237 calls, whether it be for dogs off leash in some of the public areas such as parks, also concerns if dogs' licenses are registered, and some of these dogs that have been off leash have been followed up with enforcement when it comes down to dog licensing follow-up. The numbers that are stating for the violations issued also are including our numbers from our canvassing, which is 204 for the month of August. With the follow-up of SPCA investigations, whether it be dog attacks, noise complaints, or for dog license infractions, the SPCA has been patrolling over 20 parks, and this is repeated visits on daily foot patrols. These numbers are starting to increase in the calls for service because of our way of interacting with general public. Earlier this year, when animal protection became its own branch or its own umbrella, we had provided an email outlook for our residents to be able to bring in their complaints. This can happen after hours, and this has gone to the dispatch of SPCA. Providing general public with another resource other than making a phone call has given us the ability to be able to help our residents in the city of Richmond as we move forward with technology.
Thank you. Then just through the chair, one follow-up is, in the report it mentions no financial impact, but perhaps if these numbers are at record high and continuing to increase, that perhaps parks will come forward at budget time to have us consider additional staff or resources to support. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Ms. Brar, for your detailed responses. And seeing no further hands up there, we do have a recommendation
Move
to
the
receive
recommendation.
for information.
Second.
Moved and seconded, thank you. All those in
Thank you very
favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It is carried. Thank you. Item number 2, property use and parking enforcement monthly activity report, August 2022. Mr. Corrado is here for any questions. Are there any questions from committee? Councillor Hobbs.
Thank you, and through the chair, thanks for the report as usual, very thorough. Just on page 13 with figure 1 and the boulevard and unsightly premises noise, that bar graph, what I was wondering when I read it is where does the dumping in farmland fit into this? And I'm also wondering if we've had any violations that have been able to be enforced. What I'm talking about is the piles of garbage, chairs, TVs, bags of gyprock, whatever. If you drive down 7 Road or 8 Road, sometimes you'll just see somebody came in the middle of the night and dumped a truck on the side of the road. It really annoys me. And sometimes it's the farmer's responsibility, I guess, if it goes into the field. I think we work with them, but a lot of the time it's on the side of the road adjacent to the fields. So are those in these stats anywhere? Are they counted, or do we have a significant number of those that we keep track of? And I'm also curious if we've ever laid any charges or taken enforcement action on any of those in the past couple of years.
Through the chair to Councillor Hobbs, roughly 20% of the calls for service that are reflected in the unsightly and boulevard maintenance categories occur within the ALR. And we have taken enforcement action in general, but not specific to someone who's not a property owner that simply dumps the materials on the boulevard or on someone else's property. In such a case, we would work with the property owner to find a solution. Often city crews would remove those. That kind of catching someone from another jurisdiction requires a complex operation, and we're contemplating different measures to take.
Okay, yeah, I'd be interested in hearing more about that maybe down the road if I'm around, because I think projects like that could be done, and some simple technological things could be used. One other question I had through the chair is with figure 2, when you look at the short-term rentals, now this is calls for service, I understand that, but one question is, out of the calls for service, what are the founded calls? And what I mean is, some calls aren't founded and some are unfounded, so not everything is a valid call. How many of those are there? And then if you could just describe kind of what the typical complaint might be, and also, again, the recent enforcement action, and maybe what percentage of those calls results in enforcement action, for instance, and what that typically might look like.
Through the chair to Councillor Hobbs, the majority of those calls, the vast majority, was founded, of which 40% of those were concluded through either the issuance of a fine or prevention. People took down their ads, for example, on short-term rental sites. The remainder of these files, these calls for service, resulted in enforcement action, but they deal with 2 particular repeat offenders. and we've issued fines to them, and we're reserving the right to proceed potentially with long-form action in court.
Okay, that's interesting. So even in a category like this, we have prolific offenders that are accounting for a significant number of the statistics that we're looking at.
That's correct.
Okay, thanks for that.
Councillor Wolf.
Thank you, through the chair.
Thank you through the chair. Just two points on this item. My first question to staff is more in relation to on page CS 14, the soil activity. And I'm just seeing kind of a repeated pattern, although I know it's not noted as such, that there's a lot of staff time going towards the inspections of the 38 sites in the month of August. The 2 sites that had stop work orders against them, many others that are considered non-compliant. It seems like a lot for the one soil bylaw officer. And as other departments have mentioned to council or committees, that they may be factoring in the need and will come forth in the budgetary process for us to consider supplying more full-time status towards this. It seems like a need. I just want to hear that staff would consider that, and if need be, they would ask in the next budgetary process.
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, we still have an outstanding vacancy, which we are planning to fill shortly for an additional soil bylaw officer position that will complement the existing position. And I should also add that we have 2 more positions that have just been staffed with an emphasis on short-term rental and illegal suite enforcements. That special unit will be up and running next week.
Just to clarify on that, could you just either clarify or elaborate the other position for the soil bylaw officer? Would it be a second full officer position?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, that's correct.
Oh, that's wonderful to hear. Thank you. The next item, if I may, through the chair to staff, is on or page 16. It mentions the community bylaw offenses, and then in the table there, it has unsightly premises offenses, and it's from we got 1 in August, but 18 to date. And it does mention further down in the next paragraph that the increase in that category was due to a robust vegetation growing season. So are we, I guess to clarify, are we actually ticketing people for having like trays or plant material around? Like, is that what this is saying? Is the increase in the bylaw violations? And did they actually get fined? Did they actually have to pay fines for having crops sitting ready to ship out?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, there are requirements for property owners to trim vegetation to a set height. There are also requirements to have vegetation cleared in certain areas on the boulevard. And in most instances, our first course of action is to educate. Where we find repeat offenders, again, where it's clear that there isn't an issue of knowledge, it's more an issue of compliance, then we proceed to stages such as fining, or in certain cases, in order to comply.
Okay, thank you. Then my final comment then is just to echo Councillor Hobbs' comment there about dumping on the sides of roads. I do River Road, 7 Road daily, and yeah, it's like overnight there's prolific offenders in that category that definitely use and abuse those routes. So thanks for keeping a watch on that. And that's all for this one. Thanks.
All right, I don't see any further hands up. Thank you,
Moves the
Mr.
recommendation
Corrado.
for
The
information.
recommendation to receive for information has been moved.
Second.
Seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? It is carried. Thank you. Item number 3, Richmond Fire Rescue Monthly Activity Report, August 2022. Fire Chief Mr. Wishlove is here with us this afternoon. Anything you'd like to highlight?
I have nothing further to add to my report, Madam Chair, and I'm happy to answer any questions of your committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hobbs.
Thank you, and through the chair, I do not have a question. I just wanted to make a comment because it's included in the report, and that's, I think, your outreach kind of education community team. I've seen them, and I think we've all seen them out at so many events, and they have been outstanding at those events. Very engaged with the community and a lot of fun, and represent your service very well. And the other thing I'll just make a comment on that ties into it is, today I happened to watch online the video that you have for your hotel escape plan, and anybody who hasn't watched that, I highly recommend it, just like a good Netflix flick. That is one of the best public education videos I have ever seen. It's so well done, and Academy Awards, you know, who knows, maybe, but it was funny, it was informative, it was really well done, and I think everybody will probably watch it, but that was an excellent educational video. So congratulations to that team.
Thank you very much for your comment, yes.
Councillor Day.
Hi, thank you so much for the report. So if we go into incident volumes on page CS 25, once again, the medical incidents are just the tower over all of the other incidents, and it looks like we had 52% during the month of August. I think it was 461 calls, no, 523 calls. The last time we talked, there was talk of this extra medical training to take firefighters to the sort of the lower level of that, not paramedic, but, you know, the medical response, and just wonder where you're at with that.
Through the chair to Councillor Day, thank you. Yes, we just received word early this week that the province has adopted the recommendations from the provincial audit reports, and that the interactions and that the medical interventions that our firefighters will be able to perform will be increased. And so that next task is going to be with the Emergency Medical Assistant Licensing Branch. And myself and the other fire chiefs in the region are working with the branch to find out timelines, implementation dates, and training impact. So I expect that we'll be receiving the upgraded training within the next number of months. And I certainly will report back to committee on that.
Well, that's wonderful. You know, I think it's going to be great for everybody, the public and for the first responders, to be able to do what they're trained to do. So great news. I'm looking forward to hearing about that update. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Wolf.
Thank you very much. Through the chair to Chief, if I may ask about the significant item on the bottom of page CS 23, which is the commercial fire on Twig Place. It does mention at the bottom there that the Coast Guard intended to manage any contaminants that may have entered the river. So a couple questions. One is, did they find any contaminants entering the river? And then second part to that is, do we have a method to actually put a boom on both ends, so the northeast and the northwest end of Mitchell Island, to contain a spill or an overflow after a fire dousing of a chemical fire in nature? And main reason for both ends is because the tidal influence in that section. Yeah, thanks.
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, thank you for that question. We summon the Coast Guard as part of our normal practice anytime we fight a structure fire that's closely located to the river for a risk management or risk mitigation perspective, and that's why the Coast Guard attended. As far as whether any contaminants did enter the river during that fire, I'm not aware of any Coast Guard reporting or any Ministry of the Environment reporting on that. I can certainly check in and I will follow up with you on that. Your second question about us being able to provide booms, that is our risk mitigation piece in summoning the Coast Guard immediately when we are operating at or near the river's edge, and that is the normal course of practice to make sure that that booming can be available if should it be necessary.
Great, thank you.
I had a question in regards to the August 2022 Heatwave event, the activation in August, and, you know, thank goodness we didn't have as hot a summer as we did last year. And I think that was really a wake-up call last year, the Heat Dome event that happened. And so I know this is a coordinated venture between you and many other departments, but were there any new learnings now that you had, you know, a year to plan and put something into place? And is this something then that we're going to be planning for every year?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, there's always learnings for us when we not only practice, but especially when we operate. And our emergency programs team routinely creates an after action report and calls in all the players and assesses how effective our actions were, and then looks forward to some continuous improvement pieces as we move on. We update the plan, we share that out, and then we practice that. We are planning, we will be planning for next year's heat events. We expect them to happen again, and should they not, that would be a bonus, but we fully will be in place ready to do that should that happen.
All right, thank you. Well, seeing no further questions, there is a recommendation to receive for information.
Move the recommendation.
Seconded, thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? It is carried, thank you. And is there anything you want to brief us on today?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would just like to bring your attention to Councillor Hobbs' note earlier that this week is Fire Prevention Week, and that our community outreach team has created a number of videos that they're releasing each day. A new video is being released each day, and today, yes, the hotel escape plan was the video that they released for today. There are a number, 2 more coming up this week, so stand by for them. And personally, I couldn't be any more proud of the outreach team for the work they do and the pre-planning that they do and the excellent outreach they do. I do believe we're doing better than any other fire department in the region with our outreach, and especially the reaching out to all of our followers on Facebook, Instagram, and through the RFR website. So thank you for the comment, and that's my verbal update for you.
All right, thank you very much. Moving on, number 5, RCMP Monthly Activity Report, August 2022, and we have Acting OIC Superintendent Drotar with us this afternoon. Hello. Anything you wish to highlight or just await questions?
No, good afternoon, everyone. Nothing for me to add.
All right, any questions from committee?
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor McNulty, you have a question?
Yeah, just curious here. During the last number of weeks, people who have spoken to us on various items talk about speed in Richmond again. You know, how fast are we going on various routes and that sort of thing. And I know our Speed Watch group has been out there many times doing a great job. Is there any thought of possibly putting them out a little bit more to remind people to slow down a little bit? You know, we can still get there by a little bit slower. So I wanted to bring it up on it. We don't have anything here, and I'd be interested to know how many speeding tickets we've written in a year or what our process. I see how many possibly how many letters Speed Watch would send out, but sometimes jumping out from behind the tree or the bush or whatever doesn't hurt to remind people, even if you don't. Presence sometimes is better than anything else. So, any thoughts on that? I'm hearing it quite a bit, actually. More so than I'd like to hear it, because I'd like to think we're all driving normally.
Most definitely, we can always do better. I would suggest that if they actually have complaints that comes in, it would be beneficial for us to know exactly where their complainants are actually seeing some speeding. But definitely, we are always on there. Our traffic services as well as volunteers are aware of the areas where we actually have the most amount of speeders, and we are doing enforcement. But it would be beneficial for us to know exactly where those complaints come from. Definitely, we can add this.
Okay, just phone 278-1212.
That's right.
Councillor Steves.
I got a question on page 34, mental health, and the graph on page 36. It mentions, I think, it's 71 apprehensions in mental health. And I'm just wondering if there's any potential, or if things that are happening in Surrey and Vancouver have a potential of happening here. It's quite disturbing when we see people being stabbed with knives and scissors and hit in the head with hammers and that sort of thing. And are we exempt from that, or do we have to start worrying about that kind of I think, very dreadful mental health problem?
Well, we are seeing a lot of mental health apprehension, but what I have to say is we are we have multiple units that actually are patrolling our streets and everything like that. I'm not saying that we are immune, but we are always on the road, always on the street. We have our RMET, we have volunteers, we have our frontline, we have our community response team, we have our Fox 80, our vehicles. So we are very engaged with our people on the street that actually have mental health issues or addiction problem. We know most of them, our members know them. So we have a really good grasp on who they are, what their needs are, and we are actually taking care of them as we get to them. So far, we have not seen a huge increase in crimes or violent crimes as we are seeing in Vancouver.
That's fantastic. Thanks very much. Keep at it.
Thank you.
Councillor Day.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you for the report. I wanted to talk about scooters, and it's under e-scooter safety, and you had a safety unit and volunteers going out and educating people. One of the things I've been asking for a number of months is I talk to people who walk, for example, the railway trail, and there are signs that talk about the speed, but they're really, really small and hard to read. Have we made any progress in getting signs large enough that someone going top speed on a scooter or an e-bike would be able to see them?
I'm sick of signs.
Maybe is Ed around or Cecilia? I would actually have to look into with our traffic unit and see what the signs are and see what how big we can make them. I think that would be in consultation with the city of Richmond in regards to sign. But what I can tell you is we have been all over a lot of roads recently, as a couple weeks ago, and we have actually educated the public as well as give fine to people who were actually speeding in those roadway that were utilizing scooters. So, but I will take that as a note in regards to the sign, and I will actually liaise with our traffic unit as well as our city of Richmond's unit, so we can actually determine and see what we can do better for that.
Through the chair to Councillor Day, I will also raise that with the Director of Transportation on some of the signage, and you're specifically talking about the railway trail.
Yep.
So I also liaise with the Parks Department as well.
Thank you, appreciate that. And I had another question, also on page 33. You talk about the Hate Has No Place campaign, which I think is fabulous, that, you know, we're educating people that this is just not on. And then as I turn to the chart on CS 35, the year to date so far has just got a combination of 7 hate crimes and 16 hate incidents, which is down significantly from last year, even allowing for the where we are in the year. Do you think that program is having the effect that we want it to have, which is to just get people to calm down and not lash out?
I think from the numbers, I think we can see that this program is really useful, has been really useful. I think it sent a message to everyone in the community that nobody in this community stands for this. So I guess it gives a voice to everybody else around to stand up if they actually see it amongst the community. So yes, I do think that this program it is very helpful for our community.
Thank you. Will this be an ongoing program, or have we concluded a set timeline?
No, it's not concluded. It's always ongoing. So we always going to be bringing this message very loud and clear in our community, because everybody stands for this. But we most likely will be bringing new ideas on how we can bring it forward to people, educate people, and sensitize people into the program and stuff like that. So that I don't want it to always keep something to engage the public all the time, that it's new, and so that they're always thinking about it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Councillor Hobbs.
Thank you, and through the chair, well, thank you for the report. Just further on the Hate Has No Place campaign, are there some other metrics used in terms of, perhaps public engagement, lectures, presentations, that kind of thing, that could be shared in terms of assessing the campaign itself?
I do not have anything currently with me. in regards to data. The only thing I have is the reported either hate crimes or hate situation, but I do have our volunteers and so on, so we can probably look into getting the amount of time to which we actually went on, educated the public where we did that and so on. I can definitely look into this.
Okay, yeah, I mean, those kind of metrics are always kind of helpful in evaluating a program. And then just in regards to the numbers, Councillor Day has pointed out what they were. I would just point out, though, when you look at the hate crime files and the hate incidents, and they are not the same thing, but when you look at the total, they actually are the same as 2018, and it's just year to date. So we're not done yet, but it is encouraging to see that the actual hate crime file number is lower year to date and on track to be lower, so that's good. On page 35 with the shoplifting incidents, and Councillor Steves touched on this a little bit because it can be mental health related as well. You see a lot of trends happening in different cities, including Vancouver, but really just down on the West Coast in Portland and Seattle with shoplifting that get extremely violent, and different laws, different policing practices, and different accepted codes within the cities. But are we seeing any of that in Richmond? Our shoplifting numbers are up a little bit, but no uptick in the tenor of violence at all? No hint of that happening? Because that would be a good thing if there is none.
No, we have not seen any trends. They have increased slightly, but we do not see a trend as being more violent. As of recent, as a month ago, I believe, we did a blitz as well, for 2-day blitz with shoplifting with our members as well as our CLOs within a series of stores, pharmacies, and so on. And no, we haven't seen an increase in violence.
Good. Hopefully it stays that way, right? The last comment I just want to make to you is similar to the fire services. You're a community engagement team, and I think Corporal Roy Wong, I see out there a lot with a couple other members, I think has done a really outstanding job over the summer. They had an incredible presence at RMF, which is mentioned in your report, but they've been out a lot of other things, and I think that's very important for policing and very important for your detachment. And they have, I think, a wonderful group and very engaged with the public, and they deserve to be recognized for that. So please thank them.
Thank you very much. I certainly will pass on the good words. Yes, they are phenomenal people, ambassador for the RCMP and the community as well. So thank you.
All right, I don't see any other hands up, and there is a recommendation to receive.
Move the
for
recommendation be
implementation.
received.
Second.
Moved and seconded, thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? It is carried, thank you. And the RCMP OIC briefing. Anything to share with us today? Oh, can't hear you.
Sorry, I pressed my mute button too quick. Nothing to add, Madam Chair.
I just wanted to say that Councillor Hobbs and I were at the Cops for Cancer event in September, and it was really nice to have that happen again and be in person. And it was really good to see a good contingent from the Richmond RCMP, and I believe you were there. Mm-hmm. And I think you got a few items there at the auction. And it was just great to be out supporting the riders and, of course, this fantastic event. So thanks to them. And all right, moving along to manager's report. There's no manager's report tonight. Oh, Councillor McNulty.
Yeah, thank you, Chairperson. I'd just like to recognize, I guess this is your last community safety meeting. So I want to just say, from myself personally and probably from other members of the community, and that thank you very much for the great job that you've done over the years with community safety and everything else you've done as a councillor. So we just record it in the minute, like it recorded in the minutes. A vote of thanks to Councillor Linda McPhail, Chair of Community Safety.
I'll
Thank you very
second that
much.
motion.
Thank you. Councillor Hobbs, your hand is up, or?
Yeah, it was. I'm
Oh,
not
yes.
sure if you wanted to mention.
No, you go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Is it appropriate time?
Yes.
Just in terms of community safety and policing in particular this time, for the RCMP, OIC, and other police officers, there were 2 police officers shot and murdered just recently in South Simcoe, Ontario, and I know that the RCMP will be reaching out to police officers across Canada and their own members and supporting South Simcoe and Ontario in this time, and that's just a terrible, tragic, horrible incident, and it's something that police officers and other first responders face, but police in particular in this incident. And it's unimaginable, it's horrible, and they were just shot and killed responding to a call. And you know, our members in the RCMP face those situations too, and they face it sometimes in Richmond. And so I just think it's important that we acknowledge that, being that it's the community safety meeting. And so thank you for your members being out there 24/7.
You're here.
Thank you for bringing it up, Councillor Hobbs. All right, and
Move adjournment.
Move adjournment.
we are adjourned. Thank you very much.